Mm-hmm.
I have time to go to field. I can make some in-depth interviews
Mm-hmm.
with the leaders in
But actually getting documents from the 90s, you're not going to have access to state documents or other kinds of documents. Right, right. And you don't have?
I have part about archive in our project. We, as I said, we have PIs who will be studying different cases. And part of their work is to have a field work where they contribute to the archival part of the project. We still have a meeting for the research team to figure out what types of materials we're going to collect, how we're going to organize them and list them on the website that will be created for this project. So yeah, we do have...
You're actually creating archives.
yes, exactly.
But you're not able to, and not drawing on state archives or organizations, internal papers, those kinds of things. It's too recent, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think we will use some of the, like we will try to make this collaboration with some organizations, especially the non-governmental organizations that work on these types of materials. I just found something very interesting. I'm not sure if anyone have heard about it, for someone named Lara Baladi. She did a project, like an archival project for the Egyptian Revolution, where she collects huge and tons of materials from graffiti to politics, videos, etc., on the website. So yeah, with these types of projects, we will make some kind of collaboration and see what they have and what we might add in this regard.
Yeah. You could use, I mean, I can imagine if it were available, just archives from the various postings that people did as the revolutionary events were happening from Tahrir Square or everywhere. I mean, that would be a huge project to actually try to get it all together. But thinking about those as archives is really useful because it helps you think about them in terms of the kind of problems with archives that people have talked about in a lot of other contexts. And so, you know, the question of whose archives are going up, whose images, how available they are, and when is a kind of constant question. The problem maybe with the more recent stuff is that there's not limits on the archives, but too much of the archives to actually, how do you actually wade through anything to find every single person? You're never going to be able to look at everybody's Facebook post about what happened when they went down to Tahrir Square. You'll never have that, but you'll have some, I don't want to say randomly generated, but it'll be in some sense randomly generated subset of it, and that's the reality.
You know, I would be interested just to share with you what I have, for example, from different perspectives. Like Professor Hamid Dabashi, for example, he's working this project. Who will do on-site archival work in Egypt by contextualizing our materials within the dual wronged worlds of visual studies theory and new socio-cultural history of the Arab Spring period. This will start with the trip to Egypt. It's going to be in April, as I told you. And materials will be delivered every 6 months. Materials will be used posted in English and Arabic by our research assistant to the project website to create a running update on the progress achieved in examining the research questions we have in the project. But we have someone else who is Walid Mahdi. You know Walid, he's working on Yemen. Walid will do on-site archival work in Yemen, but he will not travel to Yemen. He will hire someone there to do that. And also he will do the same thing with regard to the research questions we have in the project about Yemen. Aziz Douai, he was the program, the Media and Cultural Studies Program Director here at the I. Aziz will do stuff related to media, but studying it in Tunis and Morocco. And this will include interviews with the activists, etc. So I think I'm not like, I didn't do any archival work on my PhD or research after the PhD, But I think it's a new experience for myself, and I'm trying right now to figure out how to define what is meant by archival work, and how what are the especially if we get involved in another project about digital humanities, and what is archive, what is digital humanities might be the boundaries of each one of them. And
Well, I mean, you guys are producing in the archive, right? So when you work, one of the things about doing work in any kind of colonial history, or working in some of the earlier periods that I work on, but I think you could argue that it's a similar problem anytime you want to look at media as a source, as an archive. This is something people have talked about ad nauseum, but a lot of the work when I look at how American evangelicals engaged with people in Congo in the early 1960s, which is the first chapter of my forthcoming book, there are actually a lot of archival documents about how American evangelicals thought about what was going on in Congo in the early 1960s as Congo was decolonizing. And there are several thousand American and European missionaries there, and they are writing back reports, memos, writing articles in little magazines that they produce. There is voluminous stuff. All of it produced by Americans or Europeans. I found 2 articles in the Congolese Protestant journal written by people who were seemingly Congolese as opposed to Americans or French. So if you want to understand what's going on in that situation, you have very highly problematic documents to try to unpack what actually happened. And so people have done a lot of work trying to think how to use missionary documents, but don't simply reproduce missionary worldviews or values. How do you read against the grain of what you see? And I think this is also going to have to be true no matter how friendly you are or not friendly you are with the people you interview, or when you look at media, there's often ways in which you have to read against the grain of what you see. And I'll just give you a quick example. There's a story in one of the, in Congo Mission News, which was circulated fairly broadly among missionary supporters and people who are interested in Congo in the US, and circulated in Congo too. There's a story of people who were talking about how we had to leave Congo, we were going to have to leave to evacuate. They're not saying that, but they're actually about to evacuate because the Congolese Civil War is getting close. And the missionaries are leaving. They're leaving the Christian Congolese there, right? The Congolese Christians don't get to leave, but the missionaries are leaving. And they're leaving in an area in which two regions over, just 100 miles away, the last time those missionaries evacuated, because the missionaries evacuated 4 times out of Congo in the early 60s, last time those missionaries evacuated, the local Congolese didn't invite them back. And when they tried to come back, the Congolese occupied the church and the clinic and didn't want them back. They were like, you left, you don't get to come back. Now, I know this, and so I know these guys know it. It was only 100 miles away, and there were a lot of talk among missionaries in this period. They tell a story about how we left, and the missionaries tell this wonderful story about how the local Congolese gave us a bird to cook, and the turkey had a note on it to our Congolese missionaries, and to our missionaries, we love you forever, you're friends. And they tell this story of a wonderful, loving, final meal between themselves and the Christians that they work with, that they have converted, but that they work with. Now, I read this as a fantasy tale, that this is actually just, we have to read it as the sort of imaginations of, I don't say it quite like this, but of a fevered mind, knowing the kind of reaction they may well get when they try to come back. That missionaries evacuating has been a major topic of concern. People are furious, and they cannot believe that the missionaries haul themselves out across the border to Uganda every time things get difficult and leave the local Congolese to handle whatever's going on. But none of that is in the article that I'm actually reading. So you have to read it against the grain and find what isn't there in what is there. And to do that, you have to have a lot of context and a lot of other knowledge. I'm assuming, whether or not you're working with those, so that's the kind of archival document I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And probably in 30 years, someone's going to look at your archives and try to do something similar, right? Like,